What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Sports Darius Aiden. I am Darius Sides, and that's Aiden Musson, and welcome back to welcome to a special edition of Sports Darius Aiden. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and make sure to hit that bell for post notifications and updates from our channel. Aiden, for our fans today, we have a very intriguing discussion. Very interesting discussion today. Our topic for today is Odell Beckham Jr. As you know, Aiden, and for our fans out there, Odell Beckham Jr. Was playing in the first quarter when the Browns faced the Cincinnati Bengals when the Browns won the game. But in the first quarter, Odell Beckham Jr. suffered a season-ending torn ACL. Devastating injury for a wide receiver who was just getting back on track. Of course, Aiden, you know the Cleveland Browns, we have criticized Baker Mayfield, right? They have Jarvis Landry, they still have Austin Hooper, Nick Chubb, and Myles Garrett, Kareem Hunt, Denzel Ward, their new head coach, Kevin Stefanski, and the Cleveland Browns are fighting for playoff positioning in that tough AFC North. And Aiden, without Odell Beckham Jr., we don't know what's expected from this Cleveland Browns team. Are they going to be the same old Cleveland Browns, or are they going to be the new Cleveland Browns? But Aiden, I got to ask this question here. As you know, Odell Beckham Jr., you know, he has been one of the best wide receivers in the game for a very long time. And with this torn ACL injury, what's next for this talented wide receiver?
This is like the Michael Thomas situation where you have a guy with an extremely massive contract that is hard to offset. I don't see him getting traded anytime soon because obviously the trade deadline's all about to be up. I believe that it has already been up. And then you'd possibly want an off-season trade, right? But I, again, still can't see anybody wanting to take that massive contract. Obviously, you have some of the highest paid players on offense on your football team. Austin Hooper was once the highest paid tight end in the league. Then he was surpassed by Kelsey and George Kittle, right? You got Myles Garrett, who is paid more than Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack, right? They spent money in a lot of places on that team. And I think it's just really hard, and they don't really take a cap hit at that time. Now, you could bank on Odell rehabbing, which he has many of times for many of different injuries. He obviously has an injury history that he has rehabbed from, and it has had positive effects on him. But I doubt that he has had any faith in the offense. In fact, I doubt that anybody has any faith in that offense anymore, right? You got Baker Mayfield throwing ducks everywhere, right? You got Kevin Stefanski calling amazing, brilliant plays. Obviously, we know he can coach. He was there with the Vikings in 2017 when they got to the NFC Championship. We know he can coach. He coached Dalvin Cook, coached Kirk Cousins. He coached Stephon Diggs. We know he knows what to do with receivers of Odell and Jarvis's caliber. But the bottom line is that everybody's lost faith in Baker Mayfield. Everybody's lost faith in Baker Mayfield. And that O-line is atrocious. I mean, you had to spend an 11 overall pick on Jedrick Wills out of Alabama. I believe it was an amazing pick, but you had to put him at right tackle because he wasn't used to putting on the left side because Tua's blind side was his right side, right? So you already had a certain situation where you aren't playing your best. You tried to make some offseason needs in Jack Conklin and players of that such. But obviously that you have nobody at the guard position, you have nobody at the center position. It's really hard to succeed when your offense can't fire at all cylinders. So I think at this point, Odell should be looking for a new team, but I wouldn't be surprised if he stays on the Cleveland Browns because of that massive contract and cap hit.
Aiden, when you look at Odell Beckham Jr., when you look at OBJ's contract, right? You remember when he was a Giant, when he was a member of the New York Football Giants, he signed that 5-year contract extension. I believe that was worth $90 million. To go into that, $90 million, right? To go into that, going into depth with that, it was a $2 million signing bonus with, I believe, $65 million guaranteed and an average annual salary of $18 million. So in these past couple of seasons, Odell Beckham Jr. has been pretty much secured. And when you look at the quarterback situation for Odell, right, with the New York Football Giants, he played with a pretty much washed up Eli Manning, and now with the Cleveland Browns, he play your quarterback is pretty much an interception machine in Baker Mayfield. But guess what? It's over for Odell Beckham Jr. It's over for Odell Beckham Jr. I understand it's a torn ACL, but torn ACLs this season, they have been a pretty devastating injuries for
Uh,
these star players. Look at Nick Bosa, relatively young. Saquon Barkley, he's relatively young, right?
very good.
Right, relatively young. But when you look at Odell Beckham Jr., he's 27 years old. 27 years old. I believe one playoff appearance in that one playoff game. Guess what? He just stunk up the joint.
That was against the Green Bay defense, so I didn't give him an excuse because it looked atrocious. But I said, you know what, first outing,
Right, another subject for another time, right? But
right?
like, I understand that quarterback situation with Odell Beckham Jr., but with this torn ACL injury, you're most definitely going to miss the remainder of the season and possibly not even play next season. And I believe around that time you're going to be 20 or 29.
He's gonna be 28 this coming up. No, this would have been his age 28 season. So yeah, you're right. He'll be 29.
28, 29, pushing on 30. And we all know that a torn ACL is a tough injury to come back on for any player in any sport, no matter what sport you play, basketball, football, hockey, soccer, whatever sport you play, a torn ACL is a devastating injury.
But
And,
especially football because it affects your lateral movement.
and right, look, especially for uh, a
A
wide
player
receiver
position.
that plays like Odell Beckham Jr., right? He can do everything. He can catch the long ball, right? He can catch short passes.
Primarily,
He
correct.
right. He is primarily, in my mind, defined as a playmaker. A playmaker. He can do everything on the field, whatever you want. And when you look at the stats, these past couple of seasons, what in a Cleveland Browns uniform, they really haven't been those type of prime Odell type of numbers. But guess what? He's still uh, he, he still did Odell Beckham Jr. things, right? He lead the Cleveland Browns in reception. He didn't lead the Cleveland Browns in reception and receiving yards. I don't believe he led them in touchdowns. But guess what, Aiden? We talked about this when I recall we did the episode with about Baker Mayfield, and I mentioned that the Cleveland Browns is pretty much surrounded by their defense and their run game. Because on the defense side of the ball, you have Miles Garrett, right? You have Denzel Ward, and you pretty much have the best running back duo in the league with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, right? And
What
and guess what? To
well,
put the
what people
cherry,
are trying to say is that this should be an aerial attack offense because they spent so much money on that on passing the ball, right? Like I know we talked about
you don't
Odell's contract, who has an 18 million, but you got Jarvis's contract, who's making 13 million. You got Austin Hooper, who's the third highest paid tight end in the league, and you pay Jack Conklin like he's one of the top left guard money.
but still, when Nick Chubb is healthy and Kareem Hunt is healthy, they're pretty much they can't be contained. Hey, you can stop them after they get like a 5 yard game, but guess what? When they're healthy, and right, and even if the run game isn't going, guess what? You can still give the ball to Odell Beckham Jr. and Austin Hooper, as you mentioned, Jarvis Landry, right? This is a pretty well constructed roster,
Mm-hmm.
and but
Except for
the
that one
injury to
piece of
Odell Beckham Jr. Right, but when you look at the division they're in, in that division in AFC North, you pretty much have two of the best teams in the NFL, with the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers and the reigning MVP in the Baltimore and Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. So, do I think the Cleveland Browns could possibly get a playoff spot? I'm skeptical based on how the situation goes and all those other divisions. Look at the AFC East. I mean, look at the Patriots, right? The Dolphins, the Bills, that situation there. AFC South, maybe the Texans, maybe the Colts. I'm talking about wild card positioning. Now, we all know who the division winners are so far,
So you don't think?
but if the Cleveland
Oh no,
Browns,
that's tight division.
right? But if the Cleveland Browns uh They pretty much have a winning record as of now, but right now, uh, I don't think they could actually make the playoffs without such a phenomenal playmaker and Odell Beckham Jr. But Aiden, we need to talk about the long run for Odell. As I mentioned, he's 27 years old, turning 28 in November. Uh, this injury may, as we know, this injury is going to keep him out for the remainder of the season and possibly next season. So, Aiden, based on this injury, is Odell Beckham Jr.'s career on the downfall?
I believe he can come back and be a consistent receiver. He will not be the same Odell we've seen from before.
Right.
However, I will not be astonished if this guy comes back and has a 1,300-yard season because he's that kind of guy. I've always had faith in Odell, even when it looked the worst, even when he was kicking field goal nets and yelling at coaches. I still know he was a phenomenal player. I feel like he has the drive and the motivation to come back and be better than ever. I mean, we look at other players, right? We obviously use the quote a lot of times. Nobody's Adrian Peterson, right? Nobody's Adrian Peterson. He faked that injury is what we say in this field, in the media field. I still believe that Odell can come back and be not the same receiver of his caliber, but some type of modified version of that receiver, right? I still believe he can be a consistent contributor to any team, and I still believe that he has a place in this league as a possible top flight, definitely above average receiver.
Aiden, I see Odell Beckham Jr. Right now. He has earned the quote unquote injury prone name for me. You look at the devastating injury when he was with the New York Football Giants, right? Had a phenomenal start to the season, and he got a season-ending injury. And fast forward to uh, this past Sunday with that torn ACL injury. Guess what? Uh, you're just wasting your good days away. And when you fast forward to possibly next season or the season after next, Odell Beckham Jr. As I mentioned, he's definitely not going to be the same. And as I mentioned earlier in this episode, Odell Beckham Jr.'s career is pretty much on the downfall and is pretty much over. It's pretty much over. Right? He's a three-time Pro Bowler. His resume really doesn't stick out to anybody. Three-time Pro Bowler. 2014
He's
eighth,
four-time Pro Bowler.
three-time Pro Bowler. Last
Hold up.
right? He's a three-time Pro Bowler.
No, I'm pretty sure. I have to look this up. Hold on. Oh, nope, my mistake. Three-time Pro Bowler, offensive rookie of the year. You are correct.
Right? His resume really doesn't stick out, but we can tell from his talent standpoint what he can do. He's a straight up baller. And right with the franchise he's played for, he's played with the lackluster New York Football Giants and the lackluster Cleveland Browns, who with two franchises who have not produced in the past decade at all.
I'm sorry. I gotta say this real quick. With Odell, we're getting what's called Chad Johnson 2.0.
It's no Chad.
Where
Well, no, Odell Beckham.
no. See me from this standpoint. Not playing style standpoint, not even mentally style standpoint, but from a discrimination standpoint. Obviously, me and you both believe Chad Johnson is a Hall of Fame receiver.
Of course.
Nobody in the media. Yeah. We all know that. But is he going to get elected this year? That's a no.
First
Because
about he's a
they
first.
don't like his personality.
What are you talking about?
It's the same way with Odell.
He
They don't like that he's
stop.
big and bold and does all these amazing things. And the media discriminates against him because of that.
No, Aiden, don't you do that. Don't you put.
Yes, I'm gonna say it like that. Because what other two players were discriminated in a way that of Odell from a play standpoint, and from a mental standpoint? What players were discriminated against, like Chad Johnson and Odell?
First,
Not saying these players have the same type of personality. Just saying.
Aiden, first off, you your football card should be revoked because
You say this
you
card thing every episode.
you should never ever put Calvin Johnson, Odell Beckham Jr. in the same sentence at
Oh,
all.
Chad Johnson. Excuse me, Chad Johnson.
Oh, Chad Johnson. Oh, you said
Excuse
Calvin
me.
Johnson. Oh,
I cut out a little bit. My bad. That was Chad. Chad Johnson.
I got you there. Chad Johnson. Okay, now
There you go.
from your point of view, Chad
Now,
Johnson. Now look, as you know, Aiden, I look at the stats, look at the resumes, right? Chad Johnson, multiple time Pro Bowl, we made a couple All Pro teams, right? Look at the stats, and I saw this graphic, Aiden. When you compared the stats from I believe it was Chad Johnson and it was Michael Irvin.
there you go.
Johnson pretty much outnumbered Michael Irvin in almost every major statistical category. And you know, prime Chad Ochocinco, you know what he can do, right? Of course, he played for the Bengals, so I don't believe
Mm,
he didn't make the Super Bowl in Cincinnati. I think when he was a member of the Patriots, he did make it one time, but I believe they eventually lost that Super Bowl, I believe. And
yeah.
right, I now I'm understanding your point of view. When you look from like a media standpoint, Chad Johnson was, I think he was discriminating more compared to Odell Beckham Jr. As I mentioned, Aiden, when we were in the Baker Mayfield episode, I said that Odell Beckham Jr. is treated the same way from the media they treat Kyrie Irving. Kyrie,
There you go.
right? We don't see them necessarily as a leader, but we all know that they're straight ballers, right? They can play, they can play, and right. And based on the resume, based on the stats, do I believe Odell Beckham Jr. is a Hall of Famer?
Mm,
No, no. Chad Chosenko, yes, he should already be in the Hall of
yeah.
Fame. Same, right? I think this should be this with Chad Chosenko, even though this is another discussion, he should be in the Hall of Fame. Same thing with Terrell Owens. Even though he is already a Hall of Fame, he should have been inducted way earlier than he was, right? And with Odell Beckham Jr. with this injury, I think this is going to derail his career, and he is going to be known for the rest of his career as this phenomenal wide receiver that injuries hurt him in the long run. Ed, any final words?
I believe in Odell's mentality. I believe he can come back and be consistent. I just don't think we're ever going to see the same Odell again.
Absolutely agree. Oh, hey, this has been a fantastic episode. Thank you for joining us on another banger video. That's the first time Darius Hayden. I'm Darius That's Hayden Master. Make sure to like, subscribe, and make sure to hit that bell for post notifications and updates for every single video. See you tomorrow, everybody. Peace out.